On the 9th day of Christmas, Iran may give to me death to Ayatollah Khamenei. Brutal clashes in the streets as the Islamic Republic's thug regime is on the ropes. Mideast analyst Josh Yasmeh joins to analyze what the riots mean for the United States and the world order. Then Prestigiacomo and Amber Athey join the Panel of Deplorables to talk Huma, Comey, and the Deep State DOJ, the first abortion clinic-free state in the Union, and the widespread shock that a YouTube star known only for smashing dinner plates on the internet has turned out to be somewhat gauche. I'm Michael Knowles, and this is The Michael Knowles Show. Happy New Year, everybody. Well, it feels like it's been forever that we haven't been on the air. Another Kingdom, my podcast with Andrew Klavan, has also been on a hiatus. I got a bunch of hate mail about that, but it's coming back this Friday. And I did want to share with you before we get in, there's a lot of news to talk about today, but I haven't seen you since we had our Daily Wire Christmas party. It was a lovely affair. There were ugly sweaters and everybody came. And Ben gave me my Christmas present. So I was very excited. It came in a little blue box. And you know what that does to a girl when she sees a little blue box. I got very excited. My heart started to flutter. And then he gave me, that's right, almost a diamond. Almost a diamond. It is a lump of coal. This was my Christmas present from Ben. But someday, after enough time, that's gonna be a diamond. And I'll wear it right on my finger. It'll be really nice. So thank you for that. I hope everyone had a good Christmas and a good New Year. Let's get right into the news. Did you know that there are violent protests throughout Iran? Maybe now you do, but did you know 3 days ago when they started happening? Because there has been a media blackout of coverage. And I'm not talking about the Iranian state-run media, that also has a blackout, but on Thursday, as the anti-government protests in Iran were reaching critical mass throughout the country, the Washington Post, Democracy Dies in Darkness, put protests for democracy in total darkness. Instead, the Washington Post covered, these were their main headlines on their website. Quote, late-night writers dish about their favorite moments in 2017. Democrats think 2018 will be a good year, but are they being realistic? And Trump's respite at Mar-a-Lago creates headaches for White House staffers. They also ran a piece making excuses for why Americans distrust the mainstream media. You absolutely cannot make that up. CNN ran the alternate fact fake news headline, Iranians hold pro-government rallies. Not quite right. I think you're sort of missing the forest for the trees there. There are major anti-government protests now throughout the country, including in the most religious and conservative cities in Iran. Why the media blackout, you ask? Well, because those protests reflect very poorly on Barack Obama, of course. We can't cover that. We can't cover things critical of Barack Obama. So Obama's trouble with Iran began in 2009. There was the Green Movement there. He refused to support the anti-government protesters. He wouldn't help them out at all. It died out. A lot of people were imprisoned and killed for that. His signature foreign policy achievement was the Iran deal, after which Barack Obama flew $400 million in cash to the thuggish regime and $1.3 billion in additional funding that was opened up to Iran. Iran is the most prolific state sponsor of terror in the world, and yet here's Barack Obama touting that deal.
Today, because America negotiated from a position of strength and principle, we have stopped the spread of nuclear weapons in this region. Because of this deal, the international community will be able to verify that the Islamic Republic of Iran will not develop a nuclear weapon. This deal meets every single one of the bottom lines that we established when we achieved a framework earlier this spring. Every pathway to a nuclear weapon is cut off, and the inspection and transparency regime necessary to verify that objective will be put in place.
Here is footage of Ayatollah Khamenei negotiating the deal.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
He has perfect English. I am shocked at how excellent English the Ayatollah has. That is much more accurate. Virtually nothing Barack Obama said was true. We didn't negotiate. I guess we negotiated from a position of strength. We just didn't exercise any of that strength. It doesn't cut off the possibility of Iran getting a nuclear weapon. If anything, it hastens it by giving them a ton more capital. Obviously, they started cheating on the deal right away, according to a number of foreign policy experts. So it was a total failure. Just like every other Barack Obama negotiating technique, we give them anything. We give our adversaries everything. For some reason, we self-flagellate. We apologize for things we never did. And then they get everything and they smack us around for it. And it wasn't only Republicans who pointed out that this was a terrible deal. Here is current Democrat Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's take.
Statement, quote, "I will vote to disapprove the agreement, not because I believe war is a viable or desirable option, not to challenge the path of diplomacy. It is because I believe Iran will not change."
Do you know how many times I agree with Chuck Schumer ever in history? Very few. This might be the one exception. But obviously, he felt strongly about it, and his vote didn't matter ultimately for the deal, so he voted his conscience and what his donors and his constituents wanted. So, what should the United States position be? I, as always, am with the so subtle John Bolton.
Right. So I think we do need to provide assistance. I think we can do it in several ways. Number one, this is yet another reason why the president should get out of the nuclear deal with Iran, should resume all of our previous sanctions, putting increased economic pressure on the regime. We should provide material, financial support to the opposition if they desire it. We should work with intelligence services from other countries, Saudi, Israel, to provide more pressure. There's a lot we can do, and we should do it. Our goal should be regime change in Iran.
John Bolton doesn't mince words. I think he's exactly right. President Trump, by the way, has voiced support for the Iranian protesters. He tweeted out 4 major tweets about this. He said, "Many reports of peaceful protests by Iranian citizens fed up with the regime's corruption, its squandering of the nation's wealth to fund terrorism. Iranian government should respect their people's rights, including the right to express themselves. The world is watching." Later, big protests in Iran. People are finally getting wise as to how their money and wealth is being stolen and squandered on terrorism. Looks like they will not take it any longer. The USA is watching very closely for human rights violations. Next tweet, Iran, the #1 state sponsor of terror, with numerous violations of human rights occurring on an hourly basis, has now closed down the internet. Not good. And then finally, Iran is failing at every level despite the terrible deal made with them by the Obama administration. The great Iranian people have been repressed for many years. They're hungry for food and for freedom. Along with human rights, the wealth of Iran is being looted. Time for change. How ominous. With that, we bring on Iran expert Josh Yasmeh, who has contributed reporting on these protests to a number of major outlets. And so I brought on Josh to clear this up because nobody knows anything about Iran. Josh, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
What's going on? What should we know about this?
So these protests began late Thursday, and they began rather small. They began as an anti-Rouhani protest. And
So Rouhani's the president.
Rouhani's the current
civil
president.
leader.
President Hassan Rouhani. This is a guy who was touted by the Obama administration as a moderate. And he didn't point out the fact that executions have skyrocketed under Rouhani. Acid attacks against women have skyrocketed. This is not a good guy. He's not a moderate. The whole hardliner moderate dichotomy just is pure fiction.
Because this is all we heard from Barack Obama is there's a moderate in Iran. Rouhani is a moderate. We should support him to liberalize Iran. That's nonsense, you're saying.
It's absolute nonsense. And the reason why is every presidential candidate is vetted by the mullahs. There's something called the Guardian Council. And the Guardian Council vets candidates. And we saw back in 2009, they didn't like a candidate, Mousavi. And that's why we had the Green Revolution, because the mullahs suppressed this candidate and they said that we're only going to put forth candidates that are vetted and that subscribe to the Islamist regime.
Toe the party line, toe the Islamist line. So how should the United States respond?
I think the Trump administration has been doing a good job so far.
It's funny, that could just be the mantra of my show.
Yeah.
Since the show began, I think the Trump administration's been doing pretty good so far.
To be fair, I've been a pretty avid Trump critic, so I don't say that lightly. He's been doing a good job. Nikki Haley spoke earlier today, and she said that we're going to hold an emergency session at the United Nations. We're going to support the Iranian people. And they've been doing a good job at not inciting and not giving the Ayatollahs an excuse to make it seem like there's Western interference.
Blame all of this on the West. It's just the West stirring up trouble.
Yes, and the Ayatollahs are going to do that anyway, and they have been. Khamenei, he spoke out for the first time Tuesday, and he blamed the enemies of the Iranian regime.
So what practically, I don't think we're going to put boots on the ground, but I do have greater faith in Nikki Haley and Donald Trump to back up their threats with action, something that Barack Obama never did. What materially, tangibly can the United States do to support this movement?
So first and foremost, we need to understand that this movement would not have happened several years ago. And the reason why is because now about 50 million Iranians have access to the internet. And this revolution, if you could call it that, is being fueled by an app called Telegram. Telegram is huge. Iranians use it. It's very Farsi friendly. Videos are being uploaded. And right now, Telegram is being blocked by the Iranian regime. The Iranian regime is blocking internet in most major cities. They're blocking social media. Twitter has been blocked since 2009. And what the United States needs to do, they need to put pressure on companies like Telegram. They need to put pressure on social media outlets to keep the lines of communication open.
Because that's the lifeline of the protest, basically.
That is the lifeline.
You shut down the communication, this thing. I mean, this is all over the country in some of the most religious cities.
Exactly. There's a city called Qom, and Qom is the Shia heartland of Iran. This is a place where in 1962, Ayatollah Khamenei began his Islamist revolution. And we had protesters there Friday after prayer. And this is when the people get riled up. This is when the imams come out and rile up the people. And they went out in the clerical heartland of the city and said, "Death to the Islamic Republic, death to Khamenei." That's like going
to the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran.
Exactly.
So they could be killed for that.
They could be killed. And right now in Tehran, 450 arrests. The regime has already said that they face the death penalty.
They're going to kill them all. They have to kill them all, don't they?
They may kill them all, or like they did in 2009, they could torture them really brutally.
Wow. So speaking of Ayatollah Khamenei, and it's a little confusing, the old guy was Khomeini, and the new guy is Khamenei.
Khamenei.
Yeah, I don't do that. You know, I always notice this. My lefty friends, they always try to pronounce things very exaggeratedly native, so they'll say, you know, like Muslim, you know, or Pakistan or something. But I don't go to Italian restaurants and say like, okay, I'd like to order the spaghetti alla carbonara, per favore. No, you just, you know. So I like to very ostentatiously pronounce them in an anglicized way, you know. Now, one thing they're chanting in the streets, according to the reporting that we have, is bring back the Shah, the Shah who was ousted in the Iranian Revolution. What does that mean?
It's a way to defy the regime. There is no topic more taboo in the Islamic Republic of Iran than the Shah. This is why we had the 1979 revolution. You had Islamist factions, you had the working poor stand up and say, we don't want the autocratic Shah. And to be clear, the Shah does not have immense support in Iran. And he does not have immense support in the Iranian exile community.
It's just like a screw you, basically.
It's basically a screw you, and it's basically a way to invoke nostalgia for a time and a place that was better than now.
To make Iran great again.
Exactly.
The Shah 2018, make Iran great again. So the last thing I want to talk to you about, the Obama fans are taking credit for this. And they're saying, look, the deal gave them a ton of money and it exposed weaknesses in their economy, which then led to another protest, which were we still in power, we wouldn't support it all. But because we're not in power, we'll take some credit for it. Is this all revisionist nonsense, or is there something to it?
It's revisionist nonsense.
That's what I thought. I'm glad you said that.
There is, I mean, check Twitter, probably the most smug human being on the planet, Ben Rhodes.
I knew you were going to say Ben Rhodes.
Rhodes.
He is the smuggest. He is awful. He was smug in office.
Yeah.
And he was the one who joked about how he fooled the American people and they were all a bunch of rubes. Yeah.
Javad Zarif, who is Iran's foreign minister, he negotiated the Iran nuclear deal with Kerry. He was the smartest man in the room, and he fooled Americans, essentially. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing a backlash by the Iranian people because Rouhani overpromised. Mm-hmm. as a result of the nuclear deal. The nuclear deal, he said that this is going to open up the world, the banking system, sanctions relief, and he didn't deliver. And Iran is still impoverished. Drug abuse is up, prostitution is up, and these people are suffering. And the Obama administration did little to alleviate their misery. Rouhani has done very little to help the working poor. And bear in mind that the regime always blames these sorts of dissident movements on the middle or upper classes.
Right.
Because they draw a huge portion of their support from the working class. And that's because they've made the working class dependent on the governments and welfare benefits.
It's all handouts for the working poor.
All handouts, and they expect blind allegiance in return. And this is very much a working class revolution.
It looks like they started it. Now it seems, from the reporting I read, the working class started this as an economic movement, and only later did the middle classes jump on about political oppression and suppression. But this began with the working poor in Iran.
That's exactly right. It began as an anti-Rouhani protest that basically they expressed their grievances over the lack of economic growth.
But it's become an anti-Ayatollah protest.
It has, as of Friday, it became a political movement.
So it's no longer just about the regime that happens to be running the government. This is about the whole governmental system and structure of Iran.
They want to tear it all down.
Wow. Gotta love it. That's kind of like in America. We do that sometimes, a little less bloody, a little more fun, you know, we say tear down the establishment. But clearly, anti-establishment movements have spread even to Iran, and maybe the United States will support it. Okay, we're gonna keep you around for the panel. Can you stick around?
Of course.
Okay, we have an excellent panel. You no longer have to look at his mug. You can look over. We have Amanda Prestigiacomo and Amber Athey to come on and lighten the place up a little bit. But before we do that, I'm sorry, guys. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, you got to go over to dailywire.com. We thank everybody who already subscribes. You help keep the lights on. You help keep Covfefe in my glass, which is really enjoyable now on the 9th day of Christmas, when Iran may give to me the death of Ayatollah Khamenei. You're going to see floods of this. Barack Obama's only foreign policy achievement, and a dubious achievement at that, is this Iran nuclear deal. And we're now seeing it was a miserable, awful deal, rejected not only by Americans, but by the citizens of Iran as well. The tears are going to start flowing. You need to get this Leftist Tears tumbler. If you subscribe to the Daily Wire, it's $10 a month, $100 for an annual membership. You get me, you get the Andrew Klavan Show, you get the Ben Shapiro Show, no ads on the website, that's great. Do not drown, do not be caught in the flood, in the deluge, and say that I didn't warn you. DailyWire.com right now. We'll be right back. Ladies, thank you for being here. Happy New Year to Amanda and Amber.
Happy New Year.
Thanks for having us.
So let's get right into the news. Let's get right into the Trump tweets. I was kind of tuned out from Twitter and the news over Christmas and New Year's, but I would still check his tweets, and he had some golden ones. So this one today, he tweeted, quote, "Crooked Hillary Clinton's top aide, Huma Abedin, has been accused of disregarding basic security protocols. She put classified passwords into the hands of foreign agents. Remember sailors' pictures on submarine? Jail! Deep State Justice Department must finally act. Also on Comey and others." Oh, Happy New Year to us. Amanda, should Hillary and Huma go to the clink? Isn't there something unsavory about sending political opponents to jail?
I don't think Trump actually wants that to happen. I think he's just riling up his base and making a point that there's been no real evidence of collusion, and he's in all this trouble. They have this big investigation. And, you know, on the other side, we have Democrats who were clearly breaking the law and being completely negligent, and nothing happens. So I don't think we want to put Hillary in jail as much as I would personally love that, because it would be breaking precedent.
So that's a scary precedent.
Trump actually wants to do that. Yeah.
And Amber, that's a great point, Amanda. I mean, this is basically Donald Trump's first tweet of the new year. He sent out a few others, but, you know, early morning on the first day back from work, with so much going his way, the economy, tax reform, foreign affairs, why is Donald Trump setting off this news cycle with Huma and jail and Crooked Hillary's old campaign pals?
Okay, I also didn't hear what Amanda said, so if I repeat anything she said, I apologize.
I know, I was also just dumbstruck gazing at her beauty, but this happens to a lot of people. We have to persevere.
Yeah, but I mean, so actually, I have to take a little bit of credit here being at the Daily Caller, because the Daily Caller released a report this morning about Huma sending her passwords to Yahoo, which was then hacked by a foreign spy. So Trump obviously saw the report, thought it was worth tweeting out, and I think we're all pretty honored here that he kicked off the new year with a tweet about one of our reports.
That is really gold. And the Daily Caller, by the way, is one of my favorite websites with the word daily in it. It is one of them. It's not exactly number one, but it's up there.
Hopefully above Daily Mail.
Yeah, well, that's certainly the case. Josh, he talked about the deep state, but isn't the Justice Department run by Trump's own appointees? Why would he call them the deep state?
I think Trump should stay off Twitter for a little while. This whole bashing Hillary thing, it's been a year. Get over it. Start governing.
He is governing. He's doing a great job governing. I'm sorry to cut you. I'm not that sorry to cut you off. I love the Twitter. I think the conventional wisdom says get off Twitter. Don't tweet. You're hurting your own agenda. He's been incredibly effective in his first year. He's been more effective than any first year of a Republican administration that I can think of in history. And he's been tweeting the whole way, distracting the media, setting the news cycles. I love it. Like, give me the more covfefe. The more, the better. Any other thoughts on that? I hate to cut you off, but I don't really mind.
Frankly, I just like to hear Nikki Haley talk, but that's just me.
Fair enough. That's true. I'll watch Trump tweet and listen to Nikki Haley talk. Okay. There is one little aspect of this, which is he is keeping the fire on Democrats. He's keeping the fire on the double standard. As Amanda said, you're going to hear more about Bob Mueller, or they're going to find somebody to indict. You could indict a ham sandwich. And so he's keeping the fire on them, pointing out their corruption, ironically, their own collusion. And I'm a big fan of this. And let's not forget, there are, 100 and some odd thousand employees of the Justice Department. And so the question of the deep state is not some crazy conspiracy. It's a point that Antonin Scalia himself raised many times, which is that the great threat to freedom in the United States are these unaccountable executive agencies that have gotten too much power and not enough accountability. And if Donald Trump is going to rein them in kind of quirky and uncouth ways, that's fine by me. The point is we have to rein them in, and I'm fine with it, and I'll enjoy the covfefe while it happens. Okay, another excellent news story. Kentucky is poised to be the first state in the country to be abortion clinic free. Amanda, you covered this for the Daily Wire, and if you haven't checked it out, I don't want to ruin it, go over and read Amanda's piece, because her writing is so good, and she uses very funny word choice. Amanda,
thank you.
Is this a trend that we're going to see spread to other states?
There are 7 states right now that have one abortion clinic left, and I think the pro-life movement has been doing a really good job of basically getting these places closed down. And of course, voters and winning over Congress and getting Republicans in office has really helped us. And now that we have President Trump as well, eventually defunding Planned Parenthood, yes, this trend is going to continue. And these are basic safety standards that the pro-life movement is pouncing on, as they should. There have been women who have been killed because of botched abortions. So that's just a basic regulation, like you have to have contacts with an ambulance so they can come if, God forbid, something happens. If you can't comply, you can't get a license, and that's what's happening in Kentucky. So the pro-life movement is being really smart, and they're caring about women's safety, and as a result, they're stopping the deaths of a lot of babies and saving a lot of mothers.
And it's been this tremendous growth over time. As you point out, the pro-life movement has gained a lot of steam. Now we're having major victories, like ridding whole states of these abortion clinics, which are awful. The media would always black out all the awful stories about abortion clinics killing women, injuring women,
right?
Obviously improperly disposing of babies' bodies. The Gosnell story is probably the biggest example of this, total media blackout. Now, Amber, what does the success of the pro-life movement tell us about other seemingly hopeless social movements? We were told for years, abortion is a done deal. It was decided by the Supreme Court. Move on. There are other fish to fry. But is that the case? What about other movements, say redefining marriage, say other aspects of culture, the pronoun issue, the bathroom issue. Are these lost causes, or should the cultural right fight back?
I wouldn't say that they're necessarily lost causes. In the case of gay marriage, that one might be so, just because abortion is a little bit of a trickier issue because there are ways to restrict it without violating the Supreme Court's decision. I'm not sure that a similar analogy exists for gay marriage, but I think it's definitely is a testament to just how effective these grassroots movements from pro-life people really are, and just how effective they've been in pushing back against, especially the feminist narrative that what they call reproductive justice, which just means abortion, is somehow a woman's rights issue. And they've really been able to reframe that narrative to everyone has a right to life, and that includes unborn children. So I think, it's definitely a testament to the strength of the grassroots movements. If that extends to other social movements, it kind of depends on the particular intricacies of those debates as well.
Absolutely right. And in news that is much less important than saving babies and women throughout the United States and reestablishing the world order and taking away terrorist regimes, we have to talk about a YouTube star. In utterly shocking news, the YouTube star Logan Paul posted a video walking through a Japanese forest in which he stumbled upon a post-suicide corpse, some guy who had killed himself in Japan. Here's a censored clip of the video.
One of my classmates in the junior high school, he really killed himself.
No!
Yeah, when he was only 21.
No!
It's true. Logan.
Excuse me?
Now, the internet is seriously piling on this guy. He pulled the video pretty quickly. He apologized immediately. He even seemed pretty shaken in the video. He made several serious statements in it about how suicide isn't a joke, there's help, reach out if you need help, that sort of thing. He is one of the biggest stars on YouTube, and there are now widespread calls to demonetize his channel, something we all know a lot about on the conservative side of YouTube. We know a lot about demonetizing. People want to kick him off of YouTube. To put this in perspective, his channel has almost 3 billion views, and here is one of Paul's most popular videos on YouTube.
I don't think you good, bro. That's my job.
Did that make you feel better? Because that was so stupid of you.
It's the next thing on the to-do list.
No, it's not.
Number 5, scare Ayla. Achieve.
Did you know that was gonna shatter?
Bro, I didn't know plastic shatters like glass. Sorry, bro.
High art in 2017, now 2018. Amanda, is it really shocking that a guy whose only demonstrable talent is smashing dinner plates in his apartment, that he might be somewhat gauche? Why is everybody piling on this guy?
Yeah, I didn't know who he was. I still kind of don't, and I won't watch that clip because I just can't do it. But yeah, I don't know. I think Ben Shapiro wrote a piece about this today, and it's kind of like this outrage culture, like the Ponzi scheme, where, if you're more outraged, you have more virtue. So it is disgusting, and I totally agree with that. But people feel good calling other people out because they're better than that. So there's a lot of virtue signaling going on, and even though this is probably expected for this person, it doesn't matter. You're gonna look like a good person for calling this out, even though everyone knows, yeah, that was a bad move, and then he pulled it because it was a bad move.
He knew it was a bad move. He apologized profusely. I think genuinely, even in the video, he appeared pretty genuinely shaken by it and was making serious statements. I think Ben's piece on it, if you haven't read it, it's at the Daily Wire, was really good. It was really spot on. It's so easy, it's so cost-free to say, oh, look at that awful, terrible person. Yes, I agree. Aren't we both wonderful together? But
it's all these Twitter hashtag movements. Like, you don't have to really do anything. You just put out a statement and throw in a hashtag, and you're a good person, right? So it doesn't make any sense.
That's slacktivism. It's that hashtag activism of, yes, I take mental health and suicide very seriously. See, I tweeted about it. I'm a good, love me. Now, Josh, does an apology ever suffice anymore? He made a mistake, he apologized. In the age of Insta-fame, why are people so quick to judge?
To be honest, I don't understand why people aren't talking about the cultural condition in Japan. Why are we talking about this slightly funny buffoon?
Well, we're just talking about the video.
You have an aging population in Japan. You have Their economy has gone slightly down. They can't replace their workforce. Young Japanese men have a lot of weirdness about sex. They're not having sex.
No, they're all addicted to porn, aren't they?
They're all addicted to porn. Let's talk about Japan. Let's talk about the young men killing themselves. Why are we talking about this buffoon? I don't understand.
That's a phenomenal point, because I'm looking at this from a bizarrely cultural perspective. Why we have this outrage culture, why everyone else is looking at it from the other side of that cultural paradigm, which is, we need to kill this guy and he's really famous for doing nothing and shrieking like an animal on the internet, but now we have to smack him around because apparently he's not very polite. The thing that he's talking about, the video that he's actually making, shows a bizarre phenomenon in Japan, but no one wants to talk about that. That's too hard and serious and not clicky enough. You don't smash a lot of plates when you're talking about suicide, do you? It's not as interesting. Amber, does the fame of people like this guy or other totally nonsensical YouTube stars represent a shift in culture? It's so easy. Conservatives are always talking about the decay in culture and everything's awful now and, rock and roll is going to make all the kids immoral. Or is this guy just a clown like we've had in every single era?
Well, if I understand correctly, I think the vast majority of his fan base is like young kids and middle schoolers who are really attracted to obviously they're going to be attracted to this kind of like a slapstick kind of humor, I guess, if you could even call it humor. But I think this also speaks to a larger point about what technology is doing to our lives, in the sense that every part of this person's life is considered content for his YouTube channel. There's nothing about him that's private. And so for him, going into the woods and seeing a person who had just committed suicide was just another piece of viral content. And it was a way for him to get views. And that's what happens when people live their lives behind a camera or behind a phone, is that everything is just another way for people to click on you and think that you're interesting.
And it never runs out. You always need a higher high. You always need more outrageous content. If your whole shtick is not to analyze anything or to produce any art or do anything within confines, if it's just to shock, then eventually you're going to end up with a guy hanging from a tree in Japan, because that's much more shocking
based
than
on what his channel is, this was like the holy grail of content for him. I mean, if it was allowed to stay up on YouTube, I can only imagine how many views he would have gotten out of it.
And that is the question. How do I get more clicks? How do I get more views? And yet you see people, when they fly a little too close to the sun, when people are only provocateurs and they're not offering any value, I don't want to call out people on the right, but certain of these provocateurs, their names might rhyme with Bilo Yiannopoulos. When all they do is provoke and outrage and they don't offer any substance, then eventually you're going to go a little too far and you're going to fizzle out. I wonder if maybe that Insta-fame culture is finally recognizing that, with one of the biggest stars on YouTube now going down in flames, if maybe there will be a shift even on that platform. But who knows? They're going to demonetize and censor all of us before any of that happens. So
we don't know.
we won't be around to see it. Okay, ladies, thank you for being here. Happy New Year. So good to see you. What a great way to start off 2018. Josh, a much less enjoyable way to start off 2018, but nevertheless, thank you for the analysis. Good to see you. That's our show today. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Come back tomorrow. Tune into Another Kingdom on Friday, and we'll do it all again. The Michael Knowles Show is produced by Marshall Benson. Executive producer, Jeremy Boring. Senior producer, Jonathan Hay. Supervising producer, Mathis Glover. Our technical producer is Austin Stevens. Edited by Alex Zingaro. Audio is mixed by Mike Coromina. Hair and makeup is by Jesua Olvera. The Michael Knowles Show is a Daily Wire Forward Publishing production. Copyright Forward Publishing 2017.